Okay.
I'd like to call order the Forest Reserve Finance Administration meeting of Tuesday, September 24th at 2 a.m.
2 a.m.
or 2 p.m., excuse me.
That's that long.
Roll call, please.
Drink if it's 2 a.m.
Be more fun at 2 a.m.
Berman,
Berman's here.
Wait that long.
Caius,
Well, we're working at 2 a.m.
Caius present.
Allen,
Allen present by remote if allowed. Thank you.
Gums,
Gums here.
Juby,
Should be here.
Leonard,
Leonard here.
Sanchez,
Sanchez present.
Pepe,
Tuppy here.
Williams.
Williams here.
You have a quorum?
Very good, thank you.
Wow.
Need approval of minutes of August 27th, 2024.
Gums will ask for unanimous consent to approve the minutes from August 27, 2020.
Everyone agree? And they're approved by unanimous consent.
Those were amazing minutes, a lot of detail.
Thank you.
Well, we do accomplish things.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you. Oh, item 3 is public comments. Do we have anyone signed up for public comments? Not to my knowledge, fine. We'll go on with bids and proposals. The first is TMP-242927, a resolution approving the purchase of one tractor with detachable front end loader for the operations department. Do we have a motion to approve?
Gums will move.
Leonard
second.
seconds.
Oh.
Second, do we have a presentation?
We do.
All right, good afternoon. I'm here to present the purchase of one John Deere 5100E tractor from AHW LLC of Hampshire. Based on the district's replacement schedule, we had budgeted funds to replace a New Holland 445D for North operations. That tractor is a model year 2000, has exceeded its 20-year life expectancy. The tractor will be replaced with a John Deere 5100E, which is a 4.5 liter turbo diesel, putting out 102 horsepower. Also with a detachable front end loader that allows the district to retain the current uses of the tractor and also allows the bucket to be removed to better perform mowing operations. The tractor is a duplicate of recent purchases for south operations where it has proven to be highly effective. And it also ensures that any existing and future implements can be shared throughout the district. Once replaced, the older tractor will be entered into the district surplus program to recover resale value. We are requesting the utilization of the Sourcewell Joint Purchasing Program. Sourcewell is a national purchasing cooperative program that completes the competitive bid process on behalf of governmental bodies. AHW is an authorized Sourcewell vendor. The attached quotation does reflect a $19,702 savings based on this program. Funds totaling $88,000 were budgeted in into the account 0121227020, which is North Operations Machinery and Equipment for the purchase of this tractor in fiscal year 24-25. Sufficient funds are available in that account to cover the purchase price of $81,597.23.
Thank you. We have
At this time,
discussion.
we are recommending the purchase of the John Deere 5100E with detachable front end loader from AHW of Hampshire, Illinois.
Any discussion? Julie?
Is that former Buck Brothers?
Yes.
Oh, okay, thanks.
Yep.
Right.
Any other questions, discussion? Roll call, please.
Berman,
Yes.
Allen,
Allen, I.
Gums,
Gums, yes.
Juby,
Should be I.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Pepe,
Tuppy, yes.
Williams.
Yes.
It's approved.
Second item is TMP-24-2929, a resolution approving the purchase of one 4x4 utility cart for the operations department. Do we have a motion to approve?
Williams. Leonard
Williams.
seconds.
Leonard, we have a presentation. Thank you.
All right. This one is for a John Deere Gator HPX 615E. This will be a replacement for cart 306, which is a 2008 John Deere Gator for North operations. Also budgeted for fiscal year 24-25. This cart has exceeded its 15-year life expectancy. The utility carts serve many different functions throughout the district. They're smaller in size, lighter in weight, and capable of easily transporting staff and materials throughout the preserves, both for improved areas and into our natural areas. This cart will be replaced with a John Deere Gator 4x4 model, which is more adapted to supporting prescribed burns and winter season trimming, as well as operational requirements within the turf areas and outside of those. We're also requesting to utilize the Sourcewell program for this one. This one represents a 14% savings through the program. Funds totaling $16,300 were budgeted in account 01-21-22-70-20 North Operations Machinery and Equipment. To replace cart 306, sufficient funds are available to cover the cost of $15,198.98 for the purchase of this cart. Staff is recommending the committee to approve the purchase of one John Deere Gator HPX 615E from AHW of Hampshire, Illinois for $15,198.98.
Any discussion, questions? Mr. Leonard,
Thank you, Mr. Berman. Just one question. Since this is in budget, you have the monies for it. You know, it's kind of like in the county. I'm wondering why we're approving things if you're using money in budget that's already been approved for you to.
Certainly
spend.
is. So we're budgeting two carts, and if you combine them, it's over $30,000. They're two different carts, but they're kind of similar. So just to err on the safe side, we presented it for your decision.
I mean, I think it's great for informational purposes. I'm just wondering
Okay.
if there's a necessity to it, but thank you.
Transparency, sir.
transparency, well, you're right. Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Berman,
Berman, yes.
Allen,
Allen, I.
Gums,
Gums, yes.
Juby,
Juby, I.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Pepe,
Pepe, yes.
Williams.
Williams, yes.
It's approved.
Thank you. And the third item under bids and proposals, TMP 24-2928, a resolution approving the purchase of one electric utility cart for the operations department. Do we have a motion?
Gums will move.
Guns moves,
Juby.
Juby second. Presentation, please.
There you go.
All right, last one for me. This is information to consider the purchase of a John Deere Gator TE. This will be replacing a South Operations Utility Cart 400, also approved in the 24-25 budget. This will be our first electric utility cart purchase for operations. It's a newer model just released to the market. It utilizes a proven commercial chassis now offered with electric motors. The projected payload capacity, operating range, and capabilities meet the requirements to satisfy our daily needs within the gardens and preserve areas, the turf areas. Additionally, this will give us the ability to explore additional uses throughout prescribed burns, campgrounds, and supporting special events. We are also requesting to utilize the Sourcewell purchasing program for this one with a 17% savings off of MSRP. Funds totaling $17,000 were budgeted in account 01-21-23-70-20, which is South Operations Machinery and Equipment for this replacement, and sufficient funds are available to cover the $15,845.01 cost. At this time, staff is recommending the committee to approve the purchase of the John Deere Gator TE utility cart for a total cost of $15,845.01 from AHW LLC of Hampshire.
Discussion, questions, Mr.
Can we name that the Mavis Bait cart? Christian and put her name on the side, she'll be very happy.
She was
All right.
shopping, she was shopping down at the conference downtown for the electric
Ah.
carts.
Well, we have to go to the source. Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Berman,
Berman, yes.
Allen,
Allen, I.
Gums,
Gums, yes.
Juby,
Juby, I.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Pepe,
Duffy, yes.
Williams.
Williams, yes.
Approved.
Thank you. And under new or unfinished business, we have FP-R-24-09-3105, a resolution approving a letter of support for a 12-year extension request for the First Street TIF district within the city of St. Charles. This is a motion to either discuss or approve, whatever.
Sanchez moves.
Sanchez moves.
Thank you. My name
Trump
is,
Scott second.
Wait a minute.
oh, I'm sorry.
Gum second. Thank you. We have a motion. There you go.
Thank you. Hello, my name is Bill Hanna. I'm the Finance Director for the City of St. Charles. I'm here with Heather McGuire, City Administrator, as well as Derek Conley, our Economic Development Director. We're here to provide an overview of the information regarding the city's process for the extension of the First Street TIF district. I'm going to keep this brief and be available for questions. I think some of you are familiar with the TIF, where it is, and perhaps some of the history as well. So I'll just go through the overview, and if you have questions, please let me know. The First Street TIF district was established in 2002 to foster essentially a massive redevelopment project on the west side of St. Charles. In order to help support that project, there was roughly 29 million in bonds issued from the period of 2006 through 2008 to help fund some of the public infrastructure and some other aspects of that project. The project initially got underway with the first couple of phases. However, the 2008 Great Recession happened, and that essentially stalled all the development associated with that project for at least around 7 years. And there was really no additional increment or EAV generated to help support the financing of that project according to the original First District plan. Essentially then, the bonds that were outstanding were refinanced to have a future final maturity date in the 2037 levy year. And there's still to date roughly 24 million outstanding with those bonds. The city did make an effort to help address the situation by creating a second TIF district on the east side. You can see the maps here. The map roughly in the middle of the presentation is the original TIF District 4 on the west side of the river there in downtown St. Charles. And TIF District 7 was created on the east side of the river essentially to try and help spur additional redevelopment activities and help spur that redevelopment in the original TIF District 4. The current First Street TIF district generates roughly $500,000 in increment. That is being applied to the bond repayment, but it is not sufficient to meet the outstanding obligations that are still associated with that original development. The First Street TIF expires with the 2025 levy year, and our request for support to get that extended to 2037. That's the same year of expiration as the TIF District 7 on the east side of the river, as well as the final maturity date for the bonds, which had to be extended farther into the future. So we are approaching all the taxing bodies for letters of support to extend this TIF district for an additional 12 years. This would align the TIF district with the final repayment of the bonds and make sure that all the redevelopment goals of the TIF district can be met. Overall, the city has been extremely conservative and judicious with the use of TIF over the years. The city has only enacted 7 TIF districts in Kane County since TIF was first allowed. 3 of those TIF districts have now expired or were terminated early by the city. And with 2 of those, we actually returned several $100,000 to all the taxing bodies that was left over and not needed by the city. So through the years, the city has been very cautious with the use of TIF and very sensitive to the understandings of the other taxing bodies. So we're here to answer any questions you have regarding this. We really do appreciate your consideration and help the city meet the overall redevelopment plan and objectives of the First Street TIF. And something that I think will benefit not just the residents, but all the taxing bodies in the long term once we see this thing through to the finish line.
If I could just make a couple comments too. I think Director Hanna did a great job of explaining our financial position on this. I do want to just emphasize that we have been approaching all the taxing districts just as an effort to have and maintain that community cooperation with all the other agencies. ultimately, this is one of the few tools we have for economic development. This allows us to reinvest in those areas, which ultimately benefits all of the taxing districts. This is not just the city benefiting this. From the investment that we make in this project, that's what ultimately increases the EAV overall for all of the taxing districts. And that's the piece that we're trying to focus on. We invested some money early on in this, unfortunately hit a few different unexpected snags between the pandemic and between the Great Recession that affected our ability to pay these bonds off. And we are hoping that we continue using the money that we did invest in there to pay off the bonds just to recoup that original investment. So we will answer any questions. I know some of this information was already presented to a subset of this committee. So we're here if there's anything else that we can offer.
Ms. Gums.
Thank you. I've got a couple of questions for you, just some things that I go through. So the original TIF, what objectives have not been met? Can you tell me, like, I know that seems like a very simple question, but it's actually a good one.
So primarily right now, we are still focused on a few of the remaining, I guess, lots that are still to be developed there, but primary basis of it was a lot of infrastructure work that needed to be done in order to extend water, sanitary, storm sewer, electric, and then to purchase what is now that First Street Plaza area. So there has been a significant portion of redevelopment of that area. So it was primarily some of the infrastructure needs that were most pressing at the outset. What I will also offer is that TIF District 7 that was created, we have been porting money over from that to help pay off those bonds as well. So there are projects within that TIF district we still have not even been able to extend, and those are all infrastructure based as well, because all of that money is currently going to fund some of these original bond payments.
And can you just back on that? How long does that take? I mean, what's the vision there to, what's the money and the time required to get that done? I mean, what are you seeing here?
You're talking for the remaining improvements or just paying off
Correct. The
those
remaining,
bonds?
we're talking about going forward, why we need it, so yeah.
That's fine. I think it really depends on a specific lot or redevelopment project and, you know, what partnerships the city could work with private developers to try and get some of those things done. There are some public infrastructure aspects of it that I think the city would like to address as well. Hopefully that answers your question.
Kind of does. And if you don't mind, Mr. Chair, I got a couple of more. So,
Yes.
thank you. I'm Gums, by the way. So are there alternative funding sources available to you to complete the remaining projects?
If
That's a community-based question.
Sure. What is primarily being used to fund these should be and has typically been the TIF district. If we do not have the increment available to us and this expires, we will be forced to either cut services and supplement from our general fund or alternatively extend a different tax levy on it. And ultimately, that is all the same taxing residents and business owners that we are all looking at. So we are trying to avoid a further extension of tax or then cutting services in our general fund. There is not some pool of money that we have set aside to pay this currently that we'll just pull from.
So don't shoot the messenger. So having said that, when you say that you would have to pull from your general fund, trying to explain that to the the taxpayers is challenging.
Sure, it is. And I mean, ultimately, this is why it's a cooperation between all of the taxing bodies. Again, we all levy to the exact same people. So to have to explain that we're extending an additional levy and why we're extending that is a difficult conversation to have. So right now, this is already being extended. It's not increasing anybody's tax levy. It's just continuing to maintain what already exists to pay off those bonds.
Okay, and that leads me to my final question is, has the city of St. Charles gotten any feedback from the community or other taxing bodies so far that you can share?
So we have received 4 letters of support currently. The school board, the township, the library district, as well as Elgin Community College have all approved it. We've been in front of the park district board at their committee level. They seemed supportive of it, but they have not taken their final vote. I believe that'll be next week. Tonight, I'm sorry. So we are just waiting on now, we're working with the Forest Preserve, the county, and then waiting on the park district.
That's it for now for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Tepe.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just have a perplexing question in the back of my mind, and that is, you knew what the bonds were and what the bond payments were required in order to pay it off. Why were the taxing funds not used to pay off those bonds?
I was gonna say, they have been. The issue was that the increment never increased accordingly because of the Great Recession and because of the pandemic. So the anticipation of what would have been generated from that increment essentially froze for, depending on how you look at it, between 7 and 12 years, because there was no development happening because of those issues. So there was some creative refinancing done to try to push back some of these bond payments to help the EAV catch up a little bit, but unfortunately, it just never caught up the way that we were hoping it would.
That still bothers me.
Trust me, if I could undo the Great Recession, I would love to do that as well. And, the pandemic, I think especially for a city that is reliant partially on sales tax revenue, there's been a lot of things aside from this particular project that we've had to look at. And a huge portion of our budget is dedicated towards police and fire services. So we do not have a lot of discretionary spending. I know it's very simple to look at the city and see our budget as a whole and think that we have a large budget and it's easy for us to make up this revenue. But a good portion of that is just dedicated towards necessary services, police, fire, water, sewer, infrastructure, and roadways.
Ms. Juby, I'm sorry.
We don't have a lot of discretionary funding either. And, we are, of course,
I can't hear you.
I don't know why my, oh, wait,
You're on.
am I on? Okay. Here, let me just move it really close. So, I don't know if you're aware, but we are going to referendum because we don't have discretionary income. And I'm sitting here, I'm very sorry for your plight. I'm very sorry for your taxpayers. I was elected as a Forest Preserve Commissioner, and I have to vote for what's best for my constituents. And my constituents will probably not be super happy if I left money on the table by extending a TIF to you. So I will not be supporting the extension. I appreciate your coming to 2 meetings. It was very helpful, but I can't support it as a Kane County Commissioner.
I certainly understand. And the only thing I would just like to say in response to that is just that the EAV increase that goes ultimately to the Forest Preserve as part of these are because of that investment. So the Forest Preserve is as well benefiting from our investment in that. Had we not issued those bonds and done some of that work, the EAV increase that happened in that area, you would not be capturing either. So it's that's the rationale that we're using to talk to all of the taxing districts is we did this project to try to help everybody and ultimately bring up that total EAV, which it has. It's just that the original investment we have not been able to recoup yet. So it is a whole benefit to all of the groups. It's not just the city that benefits from this. We just took on the heavy lifting of doing that work to get it there.
Yeah, I'm going to disagree that we're benefiting as much as you are. And so I stand by my no vote.
Other discussion, Mr. Williams.
So I know the increment is 498,000 in tax, but what is the increment,
What?
the total EAV that has increased since the establishment of it?
Sure. So the incremental EAV is about 5.3 million based on the information that we get from the county. So that 5.3 million EAV is what we're trying to sort of leverage to try and, see this through completion in the best interests of the taxpayers.
Do you have any figures as to what the sales tax revenues that are generated for the city are from this TIF district? I don't know if you. have that.
Our sales taxes are for the entire city. It is not broken down by a district at all.
Are there any sales tax rebates or incentives provided to any businesses in TIF District 4?
Oh, good question.
The only incentive that is out there would be when the Whole Foods comes, and that Whole Foods is going into the former Blue Goose building right now. And that renovation project is underway.
Can you elaborate on what that incentive is?
Sure, that actually will not take place either until 2025, and there's a split. I don't know, Derek, you want to
Yeah.
comment? It's 50%. We've got it broken down a little bit based on our home rule sales tax and then the additional sales tax.
Yeah, so first, that is not a TIF agreement. That
Right.
does not impact the TIF. That is a sales tax rebate. In fact, the developer wanted to tap into the TIF and we basically said, no, you can't use the TIF because all that money has to go towards paying off those bonds. So the only tool we had in that case was the sales tax rebate, which I believe was $2.1 million that would be captured over about 5 years or so. And it is like a 50-50 split.
What was the amount of the initial, was it bonds that were sold? Okay, what was the initial amount of the TIF bond sale?
The initial amount of the bonds that were sold, I believe on the one slide, was about 28 million.
And you still owe 24 million?
That's correct.
Ooh.
That refinancing that was done back-ended all of the principal payments, so it was interest only. Next year is when that will escalate, which is part of the impetus for this discussion, as we know we're coming on an increase in those payments.
What was the date of the bond issuance? 2000.
There were several issuances associated with that. It was between the years of 2006 and 2008 generally.
Okay. And when did you start using the funds from the bond sale?
Well, the funds were issued. I was not around when the funds were utilized in terms of how they were financing the entire redevelopment project. I don't have specifics on that.
And my last question is, what is your deadline for us to make a decision?
We have to get all the paperwork in at the end of October to both the House and the Senate.
No leeway on that?
November 1st, they have to file, so if we don't have it in all the letters in support by October 31st, they will not put it in.
And you need letters of support from all taxing bodies?
All taxing districts, if any single taxing district says no, we cannot go for the extension.
Heather, you just closed TIF District 3 since you last presented to this board. I'm wondering if you can mention the
Sure. The TIF District 3 was a significant project at the old St. Charles Mall at Randall and Route 38. That was a TIF district that recently in the last several years saw a really significant development over there. And fortunately, it's the TIF increment that's been generated has been significant. And we are terminating that TIF district this fall. I believe we sent letters to all the taxing bodies already. And we anticipate that to be a really sizable EAV recovery for all the taxing districts as a result of that termination of TIF 3. We also anticipate refunding some surplus funds in that TIF that we do not need for any TIF projects associated with that in the neighborhood of roughly, and this is my original estimate, about $500,000, which would be distributed proportionately to all the different taxing bodies.
and I just bring that up because that just came in this week and Dave calculated that. So that's about 30,000 increase to us with TIF District 3 closing while you're weighing the fourth TIF district considerations.
Wait a
30,000.
minute. Mr. Leonard,
Yes, Ben, is that 30,000 per year?
Here to mention that one.
Yeah, so we can basically capture that the year that it falls back onto the tax rolls. So
When will that be?
you're closing it this year, so it'd be the 2025 levy.
Okay, so we'll get 30,000 on. My question is, with respect to this referendum extension of 12 years, I've been told that you're looking for about 8,500 a year from us. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's roughly proportionate of the current increment, which is roughly 1.6% is the forest districts. I believe that's their share. So that equals just under about $8,000 in terms of what the EAV, the incremental EAV is currently generating with that TIF district.
Okay.
Yeah. That's what I said, right?
Correct. Just under 8,000.
8,000.
Not
Okay.
I heard
8,000.
80,000 in there. It's 8,000.
I heard 8.
Okay, okay.
8,000.
Yeah.
So over 12 years, we're looking at a little bit under 100,000 we'd be paying in.
Yeah.
What have we paid in already?
That'd be hard to say. I'd have to go back and look at all the TIF increment that's been generated by the additional EAV.
I mean,
over
it
time.
started in 2000.
I can tell you that sorry to interrupt you. I can tell you that the current amount of increment has remained roughly the same. It's gone up and down a little bit since the last roughly 7 or 8 years.
So would it be safe to assume maybe 8,000 a year?
And then going farther back, less than that. Yes.
So say for the last 20 years, we've been paying 8,000 a year. That's 160,000. Then you want another 100,000, that'd be $250,000 that you're asking for in total.
And that's the EAV that would not have existed but for the redevelopment project.
Mhm.
So just to,
But we've already paid that in.
yeah,
Yeah.
was
So
paid.
now you're just asking for more. Here's my problem with it, and I think some of the other commissioners have mentioned it. We're going to referendum right now. For us to agree to give to a municipal commercial development project, $100,000. It kind of ruins our argument about why we need more money. You know, in our referendum, it just doesn't make sense. So I'm going to be voting against this. The other thing I wanted to bring up, we had a golf fundraiser last week, and I don't know what we made on that. Do you have an idea on that?
The early numbers are about 17K.
Oh, it's 17K. So at 17K, what we're doing is, we're giving half of that to you if we do this. And I can't justify that. You know, we have a responsibility to our taxpayers. And finally, our mission statement, which I read over thoroughly a few times, we have nothing in there that says that we should use taxpayer dollars to help economic commercial development in municipalities. So it really doesn't fit our mission statement either. So even though we did it 23 years ago or whatever, I still don't buy it. And I understand your point about the Great Recession and COVID and everything else, but we still contributed every year. Isn't that correct? So you got our money. So I can't justify it. I mean, I wish you the best. And I think St. Charles is a great city, but it just doesn't fit into my way of thinking.
Mr. Sanchez. Deb, oh, I'm sorry, Debbie?
Yes, can you go back to the closing out of number 3 or number 4? And you're saying that that could kick a certain amount back into the kitty that we would be receiving? Am I understanding that that would be a kind of a wash?
Yes, the city is closing TIF 3, the St. Charles Mall TIF this year. And as we discussed, there will be a sizable EAB recovery for all the taxing districts to look into dispersing or using as they see appropriate. In addition to that, we are anticipating roughly 500,000, maybe more dollars that are in excess and not needed by the city. We are returning that money to all the taxing bodies.
Do you have any idea what the amount would be? If we're giving you $8,000 of taxes of our taxpayers' money on the TIFs by the river, how much would be coming into us now that TIF 3 is closed or will be closed? And when does that happen?
Right. I imagine I'm around $10,000 to $20,000.
So we ran the numbers. That's
You
what
did the
Dave
numbers?
ran the numbers
Okay.
on, Bill.
Yeah.
So Miss Allen, this is Ben Habit there. So Dave Petchke ran just under 32,000 based on current EAV from what you provided.
Okay.
One time.
A year?
One time.
It's a
One time.
One time.
One time.
Okay.
But that's,
So it's a one-time return, and then that goes back on the tax rolls for the county or for the forest preserve to actually recover every single year after that. But the one-time payment will be that 32,000.
Okay, and do you have any idea how much the forest preserve's share will be from number 3 when it closes annually?
That's Forest Preserve share.
Sorry, that's what I meant. Sorry.
West side of the road.
That's the amount, Deb, Miss Allen.
Deb is fine. I thought you were saying that there would be a one-time payback from the $500,000 extra. But if number 3 is coming back on the tax rolls, what is our share every year? We haven't been getting money from that TIF in the past. Maybe an argument could be made that if we're getting money now from the TIF that's closed, that will help make up for the TIF that you guys want to continue for 12 years.
Right, I understand your question now. We don't have that estimate here. I'd imagine it's under 8,000 though, if you're trying to define a wash.
There it is a really sizable EAB recovery. I'm trying to recollect if it was close to around 10 or $12 million.
Oh.
It was.
And
it was
1.5% of that for the forest
Yeah,
preserve.
correct.
Okay,
So that'd
Maybe it
be a
is.
sizable EAB recovery,
10K.
something like that, yeah.
What is it, 12 million?
That's comes.
Thank you. With all respect to my colleague, I guess my question is, even if we are getting a little back, we're still leaving money, and it doesn't add up to me, Ms. Allen. if it's, you know, $8,000, or I think the number was 10 to 20, really it should be 18 to 28.
Um, Alan,
Miss
Um,
Allen.
thank you. We have not been receiving money from TIF 3. And we haven't been receiving taxes from TIF 3. And we haven't been receiving money from TIF, what are these? 6 and 7? Okay.
Or
And they want to continue 6 and 7 to the tune of about $8,000 not coming to us every year. I'm just wondering if we can reason through this, saying, well, if the TIF 3 is now going to be putting money back into our taxpayers' pockets, then is that a wash? Would $8,000 coming in from TIF 3 help us give up the $8,000 from TIF 6 and 7?
Mr. Leonard, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Allen, the point I'd like to make to you is we've already paid about 160,000 in. Now they're looking for another 100,000. You put those two figures together, we're looking at about 260,000 that we've paid. And like I said before, there's nothing in the mission statement. So maybe we'll get some money back, who knows how much, but any monies that we're going to get now, we've already invested in. And we've done that over 20 years to the tune of 160,000. So I understand your concern and I think it's a good one. I just don't respectfully agree with it.
Gotcha.
Mr. Sanchez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I would be curious to know what that number is with that TIF District 3 now coming back on the tax rolls. We're talking about $9,000 a year, which isn't nothing, but it's not something that's going to move the needle within our budget. As Ms. Juby said, we're elected to represent our districts, and we all do that to the best of our ability. But I think something I learned pretty early on when I came on the board in the Forest Reserve as well, that we're also representing the whole county. This issue has nothing to do with my district. The people I represent would be completely bored by this conversation. But I look at it as a potential of, well, is this something that we can do to be good neighbors? The concept of leaving money on the table, I think that's more of a myopic sort of point of view. That's just coming from just as a Forest Reserve Commissioner representing the board. But if I'm representing the people, I'm looking at, well, if we say no to this, that $24 million is still left, the debt service St. Charles has to pay. Now that's going to be coming from somewhere else that the people of St. Charles are going to have to foot the bill on, rather than this other arrangement that makes it a little bit of an ease of burden for everybody. So thinking of it more globally, I suppose, saying no to this would now put that burden on all those people that they didn't have before, including, people some of us represent. So for $9,000 a year for the next 12 years, we could be good neighbors. We can help the village get done, or the city get done what it needs to get done for its redevelopment. Once these TIF districts are done, the idea being there's going to be more money coming back to us. So we did invest some money originally, and they're asking us to invest a little bit more, but over time, that money will come back to us. This board did not put this in place. This administrator and her board did not put this in place. It's here. They can't get rid of it. So what do? If we approve it, we're still going to see some money come in, and we're being good neighbors to all the people of St. Charles that would have to foot this bill otherwise. If we say no to it, there's an argument that they may be more upset with us going in that direction. So I'm in favor of this. I have no problem with it. I'm not a fan of TIF districts at all, but this one was placed in our lap. We didn't do it. So that's my perspective.
Mr. Williams.
So I've been thinking about this a lot, had conversation with a lot of people. I don't think it's fair for us to say that we've invested anything in this TIF district.
Right.
The city of St. Charles invested $29 million in this TIF district. And we have enjoyed, or we will enjoy, the benefit of $5.3 million in increment. And we'll get that in 12 years. But had they done nothing, we wouldn't be having this conversation.
Right.
We wouldn't have that $9,000. And so for us to say to the city of St. Charles, now we're going to veto it for $9,000 a year seems grossly inequitable to me. And I understand we have a referendum, and I understand that we have responsibilities to our constituents, but I don't think our constituents would want us to stick the city of St. Charles with a $2 million a year bill for us to save $9,000. We may be coming to the city of St. Charles sometime in the future and asking them for a favor. And you know what they're going to say? You stuck it to us with the TIF. We can't help you. So it's taken me a while to get to this point, but that's how I feel. I'm going to vote in favor of the extension.
All right, as chairman, my comments, I think you really have to understand the TIF to be able to evaluate this. You know, we say we gave up 100,000 or $100 million, whatever. We didn't give up anything. If we hadn't had the TIF, the taxes would not have gone up. So therefore, let's look at if the TIF never happened. But here we are, the TIF did happen and the increment has gone up. And now if we extend it for 12 years, the only thing we're losing is we're losing that $9 million for the next 12 years. We haven't lost anything in the past. And we're going to gain, as Rick says, we're going to gain the advantage of that growth after the 12 years. So, you know, you got to understand a TIF and what goes into it. And it's to all our benefits eventually. We haven't seen that in the county at this point in time. And we haven't given up anything though. We haven't lost a dime. So I think we're still betting on the future. And I think that St. Charles deserves to have our support.
Chair, can I just make one more comment before you take, I don't know if you're at the culmination of the conversation yet, but just one thing I did want to add when we were having discussions with the school district is they asked the question and if we would formalize this commitment to them that if for some reason the EAV increased in such a way that we were able to pay off our bonds with enough revenue from that increment, if we would terminate the TIF district early. So we have put that language in our resolution that we will put before our city council as well, that we are honoring that request to terminate it early if we do gather enough of that increment. And then just one sub question I did have. I know that both Geneva and Batavia have extended TIF districts. I know Geneva just did one last year. And just philosophically, just curious if there's any other information we can provide that would help you to understand why we're looking for this or give you more direction on what you need from us.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Berman,
Berman, yes.
Allen,
Allen, I.
Gums,
Gums, no.
Juby,
no.
Leonard,
Leonard, no.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Pepe,
Tempe, no.
Williams,
Yes.
Caius.
Well, the last one, always the last.
It's a tie.
Sorry.
I'm gonna send it to up on the board. Or if it's a tie, I say yes.
Yes. So passes.
Thank you very much for your time today.
Would you vote?
Now you
Oh.
told me.
What?
He voted yes.
Did I?
Send it to the
Now you
board.
told me.
Huh?
He said yes.
So that motion carries.
Who?
Moving on.
Yeah, 3 or 4 times. Huh? Well, Juby holds a grudge.
Our next item is TMP 24-2922. A review and discuss potential modification of the organization ordinance, chapter 3, officers of the district, section 3, compensation of president and commissioners. Do we have a motion to move this forward? Sanchez, Juby, discussion.
Good afternoon. So I have the pleasure of presenting for discussion today a portion of the district's organization ordinance. In January of each year, staff completes an annual review of the ordinance and presents the board with recommended revisions. So we'll plan to do that again in just a couple months' time. However, for review today, specifically is the portion of the policy surrounding compensation of the president and commissioners and whether or not they should be paid when participating remotely in meetings. So this question was raised by the full board at its most recent meeting, and that's the purpose for bringing it before you today. Without spending a great deal of time on what you're all so very familiar with, the Open Meetings Act was amended during the COVID-19 pandemic to allow for remote meetings during times declared as disaster. When that most recent proclamation expired, the requirement for a quorum of members to be physically present in defined public meeting spaces returned. However, public organizations do have the ability to allow for attendance and participation for reasons consistent with the OMA, and the district does do this. There's 3 qualifying reasons listed in the memo, including personal illness or disability, employment purposes, or for the business of the public body, family or other emergencies. And then in July of 2023, the governor further amended the act to allow for childcare provisions as well. So the district at this time does allow for members to participate fully. We do have procedures for reporting absence or remote attendance and recognition of members in place as well that also comply with OMA rules. District officials receive a payment in the flat amount of $30 per day for their attendance at Forest Preserve meetings. And it does allow for their full participation when they are remote. In the memo before you is the Chapter 3, Section 3, so specifically what we are speaking, or Section C, what we're speaking about today, and then the full ordinance is attached. The fiscal year 2024-2025 budget does include funds totaling $9,100 for per diem expenses. And so the question before the committee today is whether the additive duties of representing the Forest Preserve District, which do consume the personal and professional time of elected officials, whether or not those are payable regardless of whether they are offered in person or remotely. As you know, the board has the full discretion to consider and set the compensation of its members. And so if there's anything in here in the way of opinion, staff would just say that the board would want to establish a policy that doesn't deter anyone from their responsibilities as a commissioner for the Forest Preserve. Staff's recommendation is that the committee review and discuss the information that's been presented to them today and just direct any revisions to Chapter 3, Section C for consideration and review in terms of moving on to the executive committee.
Discussion, please.
Mr. Chairman Allen,
Ms. Allen.
I am one of the people who is using this most of the time. So I would like to say that I would gladly give up the $30 per diem when attending remotely. I'm grateful to be able to participate and vote, but I'm not traveling, so I don't have any expenses. So I would suggest if we attend remotely, we would not be compensated.
Discussion, Ms. Gums.
Gums here. Utilizing the state statute, it indicates that through the law, you are considered to be at the meeting, even if you are remote. I don't agree. I think that if people are here remote or using remote, I think that they should be paid for it.
Further discussion, Ms. Juby.
I also agree that it's the law. So if the law says we can do it, so we should be paid for it. I do have another question though relating to this, and that's what happens when people come to the meeting and there is no quorum. I feel they should be paid as well because they still gave up their time and still prepared for that. So in addition to supporting that we keep our per diem payment for our remote attendees, I would also like to look at compensating the people who took their job seriously enough to show up.
That's a good statement.
Well, Gums, I would reject that statement. And a lot of people have no control over emergencies. So with all due respect, I don't agree that some
So you
people
think
do.
no one else should get paid?
No, I would agree with your premise. However, I would say that there are board members that take their job seriously. They just sometimes can't be here.
Well,
So
They tell you.
but in this case, if they haven't requested, or you're saying they could have requested absence.
well, what I'm saying is that, you know, just to Ms. Juby's point is I frankly, I think it's offensive to suggest that board members who are not present in the room don't take their job seriously. I think that they do if they're in the hospital or or whatever the case may be. The law states that they can participate remotely. And I just don't want to suggest that people who are in certain circumstances don't actually take their job seriously. You're
Mr.
welcome.
Chairman Allen,
That's not, Ms. Allen?
Stretching.
this is an entirely different direction, though. If people show up for the meeting and there's not enough people for quorum, shouldn't those people be compensated for taking time and travel to
I
get to the
agree,
meeting?
yeah.
I think that's what Ms. Juby is suggesting. I would support that.
I don't
Uh,
disagree with that, Deb. I just,
Okay, well, that's why we're having discussion.
yeah. I just
Thanks.
don't want anybody to think that you don't take your job seriously because you're not here.
No.
That's my only
no.
point.
That's not it.
Well, we're gonna have a fight later.
Ms. Sanchez?
You better hire security.
Let's take it to the back room.
I got,
So go after there.
I got bets on the, never mind. Sanchez here. I think it's nice that we do have a per diem just as a little something extra, because when we get into this role, it's primarily as a county board member, but we're also thrust into this position as well. And I know some of us would prefer just to be Forest Reserve commissioners. So it is a nice benefit that, you know, there's a per diem, but at the end of the day, I don't think it's the most persuasive. It's not the reason people come. It's just a byproduct of how we operate. The idea of getting rid of the per diem for people that zoom in, I don't know. I don't feel strongly about this. It almost seems a little punitive to some degree, because there are circumstances people have that are legitimate. Do some people abuse it? I'm sure it happens, but
State law.
I do like the idea of, if we don't have a physical quorum, the people who show up actually do get their per diem. I think that is a good thing, and that may perhaps be somewhat of an incentive for people to make sure they get here. But overall, I'm in favor of leaving it the way it is, adding the per diem allowance for physically present people in the absence of a quorum.
Further discussion?
Uh,
Mr.
I would go last, but.
Oh,
come on.
Mr. Kenyon.
I've been here a long time and, we never had anything like this COVID crap. So I mean, if he had COVID, we wouldn't want him
Technical term.
sitting in this room. And he'd probably be so sick he couldn't drive here. Well, we never had that. I mean, this is something really new. I think you should have to be present, but if you can't, I understand. If you're sick, stay home. We don't want you to bring anything in the room, but you could next time, but sit next to Joby and me, and we'll take care of it.
Don't sit next to me.
The punitive thing of it, but I'm, at the county, you don't get to vote when you're zooming in.
No, you do.
That's
Yeah,
not
you
true.
do. You're allowed.
Well, if you have one of the 4 reasons set forth
Yeah,
in
well-
public law.
Okay, but
There's a quote.
it's really a mixed bag for me, because I understand if you're sick, you should stay home. We don't want you to bring something here that, we never had things like that where the flu was never this bad. You know, and it's a terrible decision, but I think just leave it the way it is.
Mr. Kyles?
Well, I think the flu was worse than this, but it was before your time, I think. You're just not aware of it.
19.
I have a great
Spanish.
1918 Spanish American flu. That's when influenza was serious. But that wasn't the point. The point was whether it's an incentive or a deterrent, regardless of whether it's punitive or not. It seems to me that would be an incentive to have people get paid to come to the meeting and be present at the meeting. They also have the expense of the travel. If they stay at home and they get paid, that would be an incentive to stay home. I mean, and whether it's $30 or $300, if you're talking about punitive versus an asset, then I think that the person that shows up has to travel. That's what regardless of what the state of Illinois says, that's what my experience has been in my professional life is you're traveling, you have lodging, gas, meals, there's an expense. If you stay home, you don't have that. And I don't think you should get paid for that. There's the incentive to be there. Maybe if we have the incentive, the $30 to get people there, we'll actually not have what we've had in the last couple of days, which is not enough to even get a quorum in several meetings. So I'm all for incentivizing being present. So I would say yes to being present, getting paid. If you don't show up, regardless of the reason, you don't get paid. That's
Now let's discuss the
Mike, board
motion
member.
here. As the motion reads, what is,
Well, we actually just have it as a discussion.
Yeah, we
So
don't
we're
have a
looking for
motion yet.
consensus for what we
Okay.
take to present
Oh,
it today.
consensus.
But we are gonna need some, it sounds like there's two different revisions to the org ordinance. One, whether or not commissioners get compensated for remote attendance, and then whether or not there's compensation for in-person attendance without quorum. So I guess we would need consensus on those two different things, if I said that right.
So, Mr. Berman?
yes,
So when you say about remote attendance, it would be remote attendance under the allowable
Allowable excuse.
excuses. Because if you don't have an allowable excuse, you can't vote. So, and there's been plenty of times when you can still talk, but you can't vote because you don't have one of the things. So I think that's a
Right,
very
we'll put that
clear
language in
distinction.
there for that one.
And then I have 4 more things after that that I can just give you afterwards. So when you're going through the
The rest of the
the
order.
rest of the ordinance, you can maybe address some of these that do not reflect current law.
So
Mr. Williams,
Is this something we're trying to get done by the election or?
no,
Okay.
no.
This was just, but this, it just kept
Because I don't think,
coming up at full commission, but
No.
you didn't have an opportunity to discuss. So there's no deadline on it.
okay, but let's say we make a change. January 1st, January 3rd, whatever. Doesn't that not take effect until our following term? So.
Yeah.
Right? Because if there's an.
Earlier than that.
I mean, although it's not really an increase, I guess it's clarification.
Clarification on.
I'm just
org
curious
ordinance.
what Jerry thinks about the effectiveness of this and.
You raise a good point. You're not supposed to increase your pay for the period.
It's not increasing our
Microphone.
pay.
But you're not,
See, this is
Need a mic for Miss Allen.
Not increasing our pay.
You are correct.
So the general rule is that you don't, the sitting body doesn't pass the compensation that they're receiving. They put it on to the next body that comes after them. But here, we're not really saying that. It was not increasing compensation so much as recognizing that we have a gap in our current policy and language that hasn't kept up with the changes of the Open Meetings Act. And so now that we have participation in these defined areas by persons remotely, it just hasn't been addressed by our policy. And I think we need to fill in that gap. And I would think it could be made effective in the future if that's what was preferred. But we'd have to still say what it is now, because we really aren't addressing it in our current policy, if that makes sense.
Mr. Sanchez.
I think, Mr. Chair, well, it sounds like, getting rid of the per diem for call-ins and then allowing a per diem for people that show up when we don't have a quorum are the two things. Can we just get a quick consensus on each of those from this committee?
would you repeat those again?
Eliminating the per diem for call-ins. And then the other one being allowing a per diem for people who show up physically even when there's no quorum. Because if there's no quorum right now, we don't get a per diem no matter what if we're here or not. But incentivizing people to show up again, allowing for that per diem to still happen if there's no quorum.
I still don't understand it.
All right, yes,
Show up, you get paid.
yeah,
That's it.
Mr. Roth.
Ms. Gum says there's,
If they're
I'm
not-
Mr. Gums.
you get paid.
thank you. I think, so can we start? I agree with Mr. Sanchez. Can we just start and say, okay, just so you all are aware, I agree that if you show up and there's no quorum, you should get your per diem. That's my position on that. I think that's step one.
Mr. Roth, you had something to say?
isn't it state law when they changed a year ago, May, that they had the 4 exceptions that allowed for, so in a way, we could get ourselves in trouble legally if somebody gets mad at us and sues us, because the state did say there's 4 reasons to allow remote act. Is that?
That's
That's not-
am I-
pay.
It's
That's
absolutely
pay.
silent though as to pay.
Yeah.
Right,
And
I
it
understand, but they're
says
saying
the
that's
law,
allowed,
you are
so if they're allowed to
considered present.
participate, shouldn't they get paid for
I mean,
participation?
that's what it says.
I would say if
I didn't
somebody's,
make it.
if
That's
somebody-
our
if
decision.
somebody's gonna sue us
I
over
understand.
$30 a meeting.
All right, I agree with
We
Mr.
already spent more
Sanchez.
than that talking about it.
Yeah, I mean.
And Mr.
majority-
Sanchez, I think what you've stated is the opinion of the majority. So let's go with that.
Or
Okay.
should we do a roll call just to make sure?
No, No.
There's no vote on this.
We have,
We can't, as a consensus, we can't just.
I think we have a consensus.
That's what I'm saying. Just
What is the
to arrive at a
consensus?
Consensus,
well,
a general.
Update me. What is the
Chairman
consen-
feels we have consensus and that's what we're gonna.
on both
Consensus to
or
do what?
one?
Paying people who are remote?
That's what I heard.
Yes,
I
You
disagree.
guys okay with that?
that's a,
I thought we had two issues.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
we
why
do,
I'm
when they've
confused.
covered both
How
of
about we
them.
do one at a time?
Okay. All right,
So the first one, Ms. Gums had said,
If
if
you
you'd like
show,
to state that again, and then we could get a consensus on.
so my position, Gums here, is if you show up and there is no quorum, you still get your per diem. Simple.
Got thumbs up on that?
I agree with that.
I agree.
I agree.
Okay.
Okay, and then
Any disagreement?
I guess since I'm talking, I'll bring forward the second one the second issue is if you are under the 4 rules in the Open Meetings Act, remoting in with the approval of the board, my position is you should get your per diem.
I
Oh.
agree with that.
I oppose it, but
I agree.
I don't care.
God, see how easy that was?
So we're done.
Okay, do you
So-
understand?
Paid remote?
Yeah,
Very
For
well.
the 4 reasons.
okay.
Except
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, may I, by way of a scenario, further complicate this just to make sure we cover all of our bases?
No, no, you're not.
We can't handle it at 3 o'clock.
Because the opinion was that, yes, commissioners should be paid under both of those circumstances. My scenario-based question would be then, if a commissioner, because by way of the rules, they've got to reach out to Gabby or Ben with one of their reasons to participate remotely, does so, and they have the approval to participate remotely in a meeting, they set aside the time, they log in remotely, and there's no physical quorum. Are we paying that person
No.
who had already been
No.
approved to participate remotely?
No, that's fine. I gotta show up.
Okay.
That's one thing we need to change our agenda on. We need
Regular
to
ones.
approve those people that have called in. We don't,
Yeah.
My understanding is when they do have a when they send in an email, which she did prior to the meeting, and we call the roll and we recognize them, my understanding that that's sufficient. I don't see anywhere that you have to
let's come.
state it.
No, actually, just for clarification,
Yeah.
it does need in the statute, it does need to be
Stated
approved by the board that they are allowed to participate and vote
at every single.
at every single
Okay.
one. Yes.
So you can add that to our agenda.
Unless there's no quorum, right? If there's no quorum, they don't
Yeah,
count for
vote.
quorum, right? So,
That's what
And-
I was gonna
and
say,
how do
Mr.
you get-
Chair Sanchez
how do you
here is
pay
that
anybody?
if there's no quorum, they're not approved to be a part of meetings, thus they wouldn't,
Yeah.
they still wouldn't qualify for. per
Correct.
diem Anyway, by default,
Okay,
you know?
good enough, good enough.
Yeah.
Okay, did we get everything cleared? How's that?
Yes.
It's clear.
I'm just the president. I don't understand.
Whatever you
it.
ever have.
Moving on. The third item, TMP 24 2938, a resolution approving the fiscal year 2025, 2026 estimated budget for the purpose of establishing the 2024 tax levy. Do we have a motion?
Sanchez moves.
Sanchez, okay,
Alan seconds?
okay. All right, discussion. David, tell us.
Presented for your approval today, the budget for tax levy purposes for the 2024 tax year, which would be payable in 2025. Before I get into the options and the scenario we're looking at this year for the tax levy and the budget for the tax levy, I just wanted to add some transparency here of how we had performed in fiscal year 23-24. That year is final. It is currently undergoing an audit. I believe that there are no material changes to these figures here, although there could be some small changes if the auditors request any journal entries. So the funds that receive property taxes, the first one's the general fund. For fiscal year 24, there was a surplus of revenue of 523,000. Primarily that was due to investment income. So there was a surplus of 477,000. That was due to the current interest rate environment and diversified investments that the district invested in. Expenses, there was a surplus of $1.1 million, lower than what was budgeted. Primarily, that was due to full-time and part-time employee wages, which contributed to 227,000 of that total. The district had spent 95.9% of the total budget wages for both full-time and part-time. However, we think the primary factor here is due to, again, the staff turnover and the time it took to find qualified candidates to replace them. The commission had approved a more competitive compensation plan in early July. So we do anticipate that to help resolve some of the issues we've had recurring over the past few years. Employer portion of health insurance is also a surplus of 203,000. Again, this is primarily due to those employees that turned over, as well as some of those replacements waiving coverage during the year. Automotive equipment was a surplus of $298,354. This is primarily due to vehicles that were approved for purchase within the budgeted year, but we were unable to source those due to vehicle inventory shortages, as well as some of those enterprise lease issues that we were talking about last month. So the district had carried forward those budgeted vehicles as a drawdown of fund balance. So it was an intended drawdown of fund balance since it was budgeted in the fiscal year in 24. We anticipate bringing that fund balance back down by those vehicles that carried forward to the next fiscal year. Internal or inter-fund transfer, sorry, there was a surplus of $97,000. This is primarily due to the IMRF, Social Security, and liability funds, respective fund balance policies. There was not as much money as we thought that would have to be transferred to those funds. Again, staff turnover is a big part of that with IMRF, Social Security as well, and then the liability fund. So the next funds here that are levied for the IMRF fund, and then moving on, the insurance liability fund and Social Security fund. I'm not going to go into specifics on those. Those really performed as expected during the year with immaterial changes from what was budgeted and what was either revenues or expenditures in the fund. So that brings us to the conversation now of a direction for the property tax levy and specifically the budget for levy purposes, which you're approving today, that would move forward to the October full commission date. And then in October, finance and admin, the levies would be presented for approval, final approval at the November full commission date. So this is a unique year, but we did go through the same process as we had in the past to come up with a few options here of what could happen. So working with the clerk's office, we received the rate setting EAV and then preliminary new construction figures. However, due to this unique year, we do have a referendum on the ballot in November. So by state statute, we are required to levy that full amount that may be approved by the voters. And then what would happen is if that was voted down, it would default back to the PTEL. So the property tax extension law limit, and it would bring you back down to 3.4% for CPI. And it would also, you could levy for the new construction as well. So included in here in this memo, it does talk about what those figures are estimated to be based on the information from the county. However, we are recommending the full budget for levy purposes amount, increasing the levy by $6,857,534 in additional revenue, which would be contingent upon the referendum passing and it being approved by the voters. I can answer any questions on that.
Mr. Chairman, Allen,
Yes, Ms. Allen.
I just wanted to confirm this. We didn't spend all the money that we had planned on spending on vehicles, et cetera. And so what you're talking about is simply rolling that money over into the next year because we're still going to buy the vehicles. Am I correct?
So yes, we had dedicated funds in fiscal year 24 to purchase those vehicles. However, those vehicles were not delivered before fiscal year end. So we intentionally carried forward an amount to draw down the fund balance in fiscal year 25. So in an effort not to rebudget those figures and boost the fund balance, we're drawing down the fund balance intentionally for those that were already budgeted in fiscal year 24.
Thanks. Thanks for the clarification.
Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Berman,
Berman, yes.
Allen,
Allen, aye.
Gums,
Gums, yes.
Juby,
Juby, I.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Deputy, Williams,
Yes.
it's approved.
I need a motion to go into closed session to discuss license agreements.
Sanchez moves.
Sanchez, Pepe. All those in favor?
I.
Aye.
I think we need a
Aye.
roll.
Yeah, we-
call vote. Voice vote out, roll call in.
Need a roll call vote.
Berman,
Would you have a roll call, please? Berman, yes.
Allen,
Alan, I.
Gums,
Gums, yes.
Juby,
GBI.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Pepe, Williams.
Yes.
Okay.
Communication.
You have communications.
Communication,
Where?
please.
Jane Dim?
No, my community.
Oh.
We had our volunteer appreciation dinner on Wednesday, September 18th at the Wilds at Red Oak. We had roughly 150 guests for dinner. And then we celebrated our volunteers of the year for each service area, and volunteer service areas include Mounted Rangers, Snowmobile Safety Patrol, Fabian Windmill Millers, Preservation Partners of the Fox Valley for Leroy and Fabian, Education Program Volunteers, Nature Center hosts, Natural Resources Stewards, Restoration, and Seed Team. It was a great event, and thank you to the commissioners who were able to attend, and congrats to Jen Clough and the HR team for a successful event.
Very good.
I think it was very well run, but so long. Promised to end before dark. Some of us had to turn our headlights on.
Caused that?
But it was.
It was not I.
He did a good job.
I'm sure Jen will talk to Rob about it.
Recognize.
We'll talk to that good person.
Much of a good,
Yeah.
too much of a good thing for.
Program said,
Mike.
I only said 3 words, so.
Yeah, Chris was very brief.
We're going like.
Much
this.
appreciated. We also had It's Our Fox River Day. That was across the county, but we had ours at Glenwood Park Forest Preserve in Batavia. That was last Saturday. More than 100 volunteers joined us to help clean up the preserve. Special thanks to Fox River Helpers, the corporate group from Gripple, the Batavia Parks Foundation, Rudling Middle School students and staff, and local scout groups for a productive morning of cleaning. In the pictures at the lower right is local group DuPage River Fly Tires, and they had a water testing station set up along the shoreline to show volunteers what the mighty fox looks like under a microscope. In the middle is naturalist Erica Lemon, and she discusses the possibilities with young volunteers who discovered a bone while hunting for trash. And at the bottom right, the dumpster was filled with bikes, chairs, signs, fishing equipment, tires, construction cones, and more. And you see the big pile of trash. So a success on It's Our Fox River Day. Coming up, we have our Harvest of the Acorn Moon Festival, which we are changing the name to Harvest Festival, which makes a heck of a lot more sense. That is
The ring, though.
this Sunday, September 29th, from noon to 3 at Oakhurst Forest Preserve. And we'll have pumpkin painting, mule hay rides, the Traveling Science Center will be there. There's no fee for admission, but there's a nominal fee for crafts and refreshments. And this event is always a really nice time, especially for young families or grandparents or caregivers of young kids. So come join us at Oakhurst if you can. And then the last thing I have to show is a video from the Carpentersville Dam removal. One of many videos we've been posting.
I can't
Basically
resist.
this,
I'll talk over this.
oh, go ahead.
So this was you'll remember the plan was to come from the right bank and come in 100 foot and only 1 foot at a time. This is only, the dam's only about 10 foot tall, so that's what the excavator's doing here, if I'm not wrong, Jen, breaking off that first foot. And then we were very interested to see what the interior integrity was gonna look like when that and it's been, I mean, like perfect. We're able to break it up, but it's not paper mache is what they've been saying. So it's structurally sound as the removal goes. So it's been going very well ahead of schedule. It's been all good things, I think.
Yeah, we're incredibly ahead of schedule. We were initially supposed to start that notch on the 26th of September. So we're way ahead of schedule at this point.
First time in 10 years we've been ahead of schedule.
You're at the Forest Preserve now.
Yeah, that's right.
Just a question. In the presentation, you said the vehicle would be upstream from the dam, and that looks like it's downstream.
No, it is. I apologize if I misspoke in the presentation. No, they need to have that causeway downstream of the dam. That helps with trapping
runoff.
sediment. Yep.
right.
And helps that. And it's also,
Clarification. Thank you.
yep. Yeah. Apologies.
It makes sense.
Just be like the middle of water and just sink.
They're taking up 1 foot
No,
at a time?
they put that.
Yeah.
Yeah, 1 foot and then going.
Yeah.
Yeah. 1 foot.
So the initial notch, originally they were supposed to do a 50-foot wide by 1 foot deep. Because the water conditions were so good last Friday, they went ahead and took the a whole 100-foot wide notch by 1 foot deep. You let the river settle, and then they came back, today's Tuesday, so that was yesterday, and took the second foot out. So we now have a 2-foot deep notch, which, if you look at the camera today, you'll notice that the top part of the dam is now dry, which is exactly what they need. So they weren't out there today with the rain. I expect them to be back out tomorrow. So the next step would be to actually remove the exposed 1-foot concrete that is just to the west of that jackhammer right now. And then they'll go back over to the east side, drop it another foot down to expose the next foot of concrete to the west.
Rinse and repeat.
Yep, rinse and repeat.
Beautiful.
So how you find these videos is if you go to the website that's on the screen, but there's also a link to that from our homepage. And Kate, if you click on that,
Oh,
control click on that.
you're unrecognized.
Oh, okay, so I can, oh.
Well, maybe.
Yeah, really, Dale, you can do that?
We all want to do that, Dale.
Go to the website then.
At least for the guys in the room, for sure.
I'll probably cancel a meeting or two, but other.
Hold on a minute.
Nobody cares. You get your per diem.
I can run one of those.
We can spin a whole, yeah.
What? I want your. That'd be
Oh,
fun.
yeah, nice, easy one to find.
That'll be able to chase her. Yeah. People go
All right.
driving over to it.
So if you get to our Carpentersville Dam page, which there's also a link to from the homepage,
Oh, yeah.
you'll see the green buttons there. The first one's the time-lapse video. And that shows the entire start to finish of the dam removal every 15 seconds, I believe it's taking a picture. And we update this every weekday at the end of the day. So when that runs out, Kate, if you go back to the
So we tell
website.
people that was a slow motion video of us taking down.
Well, we explain underneath that you can change the speed on it because it is going really fast. And then the second video, if you click on it, is not that. That's not what we're trying to show. So that is the second video. So that's the initial notching shot by Jen with her cell phone. And then the last button is the YouTube playlist. And we're posting all of the videos here from most recent to oldest. And we're also posting on social media, and we've had a ton of interest in this and a ton of engagement and a ton of comments. And thank you to Jared for wading into the craziness with me, responding to some of the people in the comments. It's been interesting.
Which video is the one with the crazy guy in the kayak?
I'm not sure. We saw you, but I can't.
You're on there.
They were the fast ones.
The initial notch.
I'm gonna ask Chief, do we have the video of him chasing that crazy guy?
And then the last thing I had in my report was, we have a public information meeting tonight at the Prisco Community Center in Aurora. We're gonna be talking about the referendum. It's open house style format. Come and stay as long as you like. It will be from 6:30 to 8, but Ben will be doing a presentation at 7 p.m. And we got the initial batch of referendum brochures delivered here, and I gave you all a copy, and we'll have a lot more of those, but not until the end of the week. That's it.
What do you end?
So maybe by
Turnout.
Maybe.
2025. Yeah, and we don't normally get huge turnout at those public events.
I don't know. We've had 100 people before, and we've had 4 people before. You just never know.
Don't know whether I should show up.
Are we gonna have?
You should go up.
Kate, Did we get anything in your hunting trip?
No elk were harmed in Idaho last week.
Oh, we gotta go to the grocery store again.
Bottles of whiskey though.
They didn't survive the trip.
Any other comments? I have no comments. Motion for adjournment.
To adjourn. Sanchez second.
All those in favor say aye. Opposed, be it. We're out of here.
Oh.